I know you. We go back like chiroprac and like cornrows. Shout out to
hmm
that song.
Family.
But yeah, who are you? Tell us about yourself.
Most people know me as Jay Jackson. My name is Justin Jackson. That's what my family and close friends refer to me as. I don't know. I'm just a creative from the Kalamazoo area, a father, uh, 9 to 5 mechanic.
That boy working on them
I'm
cars.
telling you, man, cars, them trucks, you name it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of the long and short of it. I've been in the Kalamazoo community probably creating for about a decade now, which is wild to me to say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been creating about a decade, from videography to music to theater to dance, kind of the whole nine, the whole realm of collaborating with different individuals and artists, and bringing people together to create pieces of art. So yeah.
You an OG. You an elder at this point. Not
I
a
guess.
decade in the game.
I
Not theater
guess.
and dance and music and.
Yes, technically speaking, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That's wild.
Yeah, it really is. So
Crazy thought.
if that's a 10-year journey that
Mhm.
you've arrived at now, then what kind of started that? Were you just into it as a kid? How does fire come into play with that? When did you start and why did you start? I guess is my question.
Okay, there's quite a gap. So I tell the same response to that question. I started because I was raised in a very religious upbringing, a very tight-knit church-going network. My school, from I think 5th grade till I was in probably 10th or 11th grade, was my church. So I was at the same building 6 days a week. My church was my school, and my school was my church. So, with that being said, it was very sheltered, I guess is the word, for lack of a better term. So there weren't a lot of things that we are kind of allowed to do in our free time. Our spare time was kind of limited to sports, and not so much competitive sports, but just sports amongst the people who were there. And we were allowed to go into the church and play with the instruments, the piano and the drum set. And so just out of boredom, out of lack of, options, that's what I always gravitated to. So when we have recess and we have break, I'm always trying to drag people into the church to play music. They're like, man, no, I'm going outside. I want to go play soccer. I want to play on the computer. I remember that's like a very vivid memory from my childhood is my friends being very mad at me, like, leave me alone, I'm not. I always wanted to do this. So that's kind of just where it started. It was just something I was allowed to do. I was Seventh-day Adventist, so if you know anything about Seventh-day Adventist, from Friday night sunset till Saturday night sunset, we really don't do anything unless it's fellowship related. We read the Bible, we commune, we walk in nature. Other than that, we don't watch TV. We don't listen to radio. We don't go to sporting events. It's basically, the day of rest. So basically, being that as it is, we take a rest from all the, secular things, I guess you might say. But music was one thing they allowed me to do. I could play the piano, I could play drums, or whatever instrument I had available. So I spent a lot of my Saturdays growing up playing instruments, and then that just grew. It just grew. Obviously, I started playing basketball, and that became pretty serious for a while. Very serious. I went to college for basketball, and I played basketball in Fort Wayne at Indiana Tech University, and I had my first child in the spring of my very first year there. So it made it pretty difficult to commit to being a full-time athlete. And with that being said, the next thing in line was music. So as soon as I realized, okay, I'm not going to be able to take care of my daughter and play basketball full time.
Yeah.
I can continue to create and make music. Around that same time, I relocated back to this area because where I came from had a better support system, and then basically just dived in full time. And it was like, okay, how do we make this a career? And every day was spent trying to figure out how to connect with the artists, local artists, connect with the music scene, connect with the art scene. That's where I started attending a bunch of open mic nights, started getting connected with people like Denise and DC and Yogi, and from there, it's history.
Yeah.
Shortly after, obviously, I was linked up with Miss Johnson, Dr. Johnson, and Fire, and started taking my talents there, I guess you might say. And working with the youth, was the ED there for a short period of time.
How old were you when you first got to Fire?
I was probably 23. Probably 23 or 24 when I really got linked up with Fire.
Okay. Yeah. So one thing, I mean, the stories and the legend of Fire is clearly killer of the Kalamazoo.
Crazy history.
Right.
Absolutely.
So even beyond just artistically, one of the things that they came up with was this creative justice model of passionate economy that's really centered around finding and expressing that authentic self. So it's interesting to me that a lot of people talk about Fire from their teenage years, but you as a 23-year-old, you've been established in a way where your identity is still being shaped, but maybe not in as formative a time as an adolescent.
Absolutely.
Coming in with a sense of yourself, whether you are able to express it authentically or not, may be into question based on, how things kind of shifted as you became a father. But I think I'm learning that today of you being an ED there at all, because I was you as a 19-year-old just kind of kicking it at the open mic, but that fourth pillar of that model being sharing what you have learned as an authentic self, having gotten some skills and the ability to express that. Now you're pushing into the platform of supporting the community around you in and with that. So talk about that time, because that's news to me. Yeah,
it's funny you asked that. The reason it happened was more so like the visions just aligned. I was already sure I was a musician and an artist, but first and foremost, I was so dedicated to like the youth and community, and I've always been that way. I was fortunate to be privileged in the sense that I had a dad and a mom who had a good income and were able to provide for me and give me a good example of a way to be positively and to grow and to learn. And so my whole life, just my dedication to the culture and the African-American diaspora has been to be able to give that back, because I know so many people aren't given that opportunity. I was actually adopted on top of that. So if I had a few things gone another way, I'd be one of those less fortunate who's just thriving and hungry for an opportunity. So it's always been in the back of my mind or the front of it to be able to give back whatever opportunities are given to me. So with that being said, once I learned what Fire did, being in that urban environment and appealing to, I guess, a lower class of people, giving those opportunities and skill sets and a place to come and just be their authentic selves, like you said, and grow in a safe environment, I was all in 100%. I was like, I can come and do art and give back to the youth. Absolutely.
Sign me up.
Sign me up. Where do I sign on the dotted line? So that was kind of that. And then it just kind of grew from there. But as much as I was helping these kids grow, it was an opportunity for me to grow. An opportunity for me to grow as a philanthropist, a community activist, in work in what I was good at. I think when I first started Fire, it was the radio station. They had a small AM channel. I'm thinking back. I haven't thought about this in years, many years. But they had a small AM channel. Oh man, I'm so upset with myself. I can't remember the gentleman's name who was running it at the time, but he was getting older and he had been doing it for a long time. So he was ready to hand over the reins. And I had a little bit of knowledge working, audio equipment and technology. So it just kind of made sense that I would kind of take over for him. And that's where it started. And I'm not sure if Dr. Johnson was aware of all the skills I had at that point. Right. I guess as I slowly started to reveal them to her, she was like, "Oh, you could do this. Oh, you could do this. And then we can have you do this."
Pull you in deeper and deeper. She has a way of doing that.
She does indeed. And I'm so thankful for it because it built my confidence. It was like, oh wow, you have the confidence in me to do these things. that just makes me feel better about myself and more willing to dive headfirst in. Because I guess before I'd be a little bit reluctant, like, oh man, I can't do that. I've never did radio. I've never like actually led a program like this. But her confidence in me, you know, built my own personal confidence in myself, allowed me to really, really commit myself to it.
So you mentioned you're a father.
Yeah.
Tell me about your kids and how that your journey of fatherhood has also grown with your journey of being an artist.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, I had my first child at 18 when I had Alacia, my oldest daughter, who just turned 13. And then that kind of was the biggest pivot in my life. That was the like, all right, we're not going the athletic academic route. We're gonna be a starving artist. And I very much embraced that term at the time.
Yeah.
In the sense that I was able to feed my daughter, take care of my daughter, but still knowing that this wasn't the end game. This wasn't the goal. Everything we're doing for right now is for a better time. And it seemed like a sacrifice at that point for like an eventual better future that we'll be happy about. And then obviously my second daughter came not long after, maybe 2 or 3 years later. So she's 10 now. So yeah, about 2.5, 3 years later. And then, yeah, everything was about them and music. It was just putting food on the table for them, making sure they're happy, healthy, and in a good place for their future, and then continuing to chase this dream of being a creative for a career. Recently, I have a blended family now, so in a very short time there was 2 more additions. So a son and a daughter were added to that, a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old, and then shortly after that a baby girl. So right now we're sitting on a family of 5, and I'm engaged, and yeah, so it's a big household, and it's beautiful because now that directly reflects to my art.
Yeah.
Like I hear it in my art now. I see it in my art now. I can't ignore it. It's a natural progression because that's what I'm going through right now, you know? So I would say just the pride I take in being a father, it directly correlates to my music now. And I'm very thankful for it at the end of the day. Yeah.
What's your plan for the fellowship?
My plan is to produce like a full-length LP that'll be solely, you know, produced, arranged, and put together like me, by myself. I mean, my inspiration is obviously Robert Glasper, in the sense that I don't want to abandon the collective approach that kind of got me to this point artistically. I love like putting pieces together. That is like my favorite thing to do with music, is taking a bunch of puzzle pieces and putting them and figuring out how to put them together properly to, you know, lend to the greater picture in the end. So while this will definitely be my solo project, I love how Robert Glasper is able to put out solo projects but still incorporate everyone, you know. So that's kind of my goal, my surface level goal for this fellowship, is to be able to put together that type of project. All the people I've worked with in the past, musicians, artists, arrangers, writers, the whole nine. I still intend on incorporating them as much as possible.
Yeah. Okay. Because I see you got that Daily Bread in the back of the
background there. My shout out.
Hey, ODB. Hey.
Last Gas Collective, Our Daily Bread. Yeah, shout out to them. That's my family. And like it wouldn't be a Jay Jackson project if like all of them weren't incorporated in this in some way, shape, or form.
Okay, so you mentioned Robert Glasper.
Yep.
Me and Dr. Johnson have had this conversation about how women are just killing it in the game right now, whether that's MCs, whether that is, you know, musicians, like straight ahead jazzers, like in every pocket. And I think that's one of the beauties of social media, is that we have this exposure to see from a global perspective and how nuanced expressions of art are. So like,
I think it cut out some of the gatekeepers.
Exactly. So we can see 50 drummers a day if we wanted to, as a as a self-voluntold DNR. Like, I'm looking for a drummer. Let me just go on Instagram and check a hashtag.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So 100%. Looking at how women have come to the forefront in what it seems mainstream music and even other art forms. As a black man, what men are you looking at? They have to be black, but what men are you looking at as inspiration, and how that informs what you're creating or what you're listening to, even when you're on the job? Because I know as a mechanic, you get to have your headphones in, like all that drilling.
The entire time. I have my headphones in the entire time I'm at.
Yeah. So what are you listening to? Who are you looking at, men-wise?
It's funny, because I'll be honest with you. I'll be perfectly honest. I don't listen to that much music at work. I don't. I'm primarily listening to podcasts and history documentaries. That consumes like 90% of what I listen to at work. And I don't know. I love, the reason I guess I've been so attracted to that, and it's been so appealing to me recently, is just being able to delve into the history and people's mindsets without any outside bias input. I think there's a lot of narratives surrounding a lot of historical figures, people, for whatever reason, to accompany an agenda or whatever it might be. So what I've been doing recently is going back and taking the bias out of history and just seeing how it touches me, what it means to me, and what I can take from it. I think it's been very easy for people to just be labeled good or bad, and for whatever reason, someone's got to win, someone's got to lose. So there's not a lot of room for gray area, and I just think the whole world is gray. I don't believe in any black or white whatsoever. So recently I've been nonstop studying like leaders. Leaders has been my main thing. Leaders who have been given bad reps, from Mao to Stalin to Lenin to Che Guevara to, a lot of communist leaders, to American leaders, to Fred Hampton, obviously Malcolm X. I was obsessed with Malcolm X when I was 13 years old. Yeah. But I've recently gone back and delved in even deeper, again, with that clear mind of looking at everything gray. Gandhi. I just think that there's so much that can be taken from everyone. And these people, good or bad, no matter how you label them, they had such an influence and such an impact on the world that we live in today. Our world would not look the same if it weren't for every single name that I just named. Right. So I want to figure out why and how, what made them tick, why did people resonate to them, for good or bad. What about them made people want to get up and move for them? And sure, that these aren't artists, but to me, in the traditional sense, they're not. I was
gonna say that's debatable, but
that's an art.
Yep.
That is an art. That is a skill. Being able to study and wield history and wield words as a tool is incredible to me, and I'm so fascinated by it. So like I said, no, I haven't been listening to much music. I've been listening to history, and like I told Dr. Johnson, this project I intended to be a lot of social commentary, not necessarily current social commentary, but historical social commentary. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. And musically, obviously, I still listen to a ton of music, but that hasn't been my focus. I'm at a point where I've been doing this for a while. You know what I mean? So the music, in all honesty, it's not a struggle. I don't struggle to create music. What I do struggle to do is to find motivation. What I do struggle to do is to find content or a vision behind the music. So something that's like deeper. So when you hear it's just not this surface level arrangement, there's something you can tell, there's something deeper there, especially in the sense of a project, not just a song. It's like there has to be this underlying thread that strings everything together. So that's what I put most of my emphasis and effort into, is trying to figure out what that thread is that's going to connect this piece and really commit to it and be very, very intentional about it. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. I love it. I'm inspired, and you always make me think, brother.
Oh,
you always make me
likewise.
think. Okay. Well, I'm excited to see what you come up with. The Institute is behind you 1,000%, and we'll probably do another one of these, maybe two, like where are you with the project while you're in the midst of it, and then at the end to just kind of talk about your process and
for sure,
what that's looked like. But thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.